Elena Voss had worked inside the Castellano house for 3 years, and in that time she had learned 2 things about the man who owned it. The first was that Dominic Castellano never raised his voice. The second was that he never needed to. A quiet word from him carried more weight than most men's shouting, because everyone in that house understood what kind of power stood behind it. Dominic ran his family's business affairs from a study on the 2nd floor, a room with dark wooden shelves, heavy curtains, and a desk that had belonged to his father before him. People came and went from that room at odd hours. Some left looking relieved, others left looking pale. Elena never asked questions about any of it. Her job was simple. She kept the house clean, she cooked the meals, and she looked after the one person in that home who still had a soft heart. That person was Mia, Dominic's 7-year-old daughter. Mia's mother had passed away when the girl was only 3, and since then, the house had run on schedules and silence. Dominic loved his daughter fiercely, but he did not know how to sit with her and talk about her day, or braid her hair before school, or tell her a bedtime story until she fell asleep. Those small, ordinary things had somehow become Elena's job, and over time, they had become Elena's joy. Every morning, Elena packed Mia's lunch with a little note tucked inside the napkin. Every evening, she brushed the girl's hair while Mia talked about her classmates, her drawings, and the stray cat she had named Buttons that lived near the garden wall. Mia trusted Elena the way children trust the person who never forgets to say goodnight. Dominic noticed none of this closely. He assumed the house simply worked, the way his business simply worked, because he had put the right people in the right places. He did not know how deep the roots had grown until the day he pulled them out with his own hands. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Dominic's personal assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Rosa, walked into his study holding a folder of receipts. She placed it on his desk without sitting down, which was her way of showing that something serious needed his attention. "There's a problem with the household accounts," Rosa said. "Money has been going missing for months. Small amounts, spread out, so it wouldn't be noticed right away. I traced it back to the housekeeper." Dominic looked up from his papers. "Elena?" "I'm afraid so," Rosa said, her voice steady and convincing. "I didn't want to believe it either, but the numbers don't lie." What Dominic did not know, and what Rosa never intended for him to find out, was that the numbers had been arranged by Rosa herself. Her cousin needed steady work, and a housekeeper's position in the Castellano home paid better than most jobs in the city. Removing Elena, quietly and without a trace of suspicion falling on Rosa, would open the door for her cousin to walk right in. Dominic did not ask for proof beyond what was placed in front of him. He did not ask why anyone would notice such small missing amounts unless they had been watching closely enough to fabricate a pattern. He simply closed the folder, exhaled once, and made a decision the way he made every other decision in that house, quickly and without looking back. He called Elena into his study that evening. She stood in front of his desk with her hands folded, the way she always did when he wanted to speak with her, expecting perhaps a note about groceries or a change in Mia's school schedule. "I've reviewed the household accounts," Dominic said, sliding an envelope across the desk. "There have been discrepancies. I won't discuss the details. This is your final pay, plus a bit extra for your time here. I'd like you gone by morning." Elena felt the air leave her lungs. She wanted to ask what discrepancies, what proof, what had she supposedly done, but she had lived long enough and worked in enough houses like this one to know that men like Dominic Castellano did not owe explanations to housekeepers, and arguing rarely changed anything except the mood in the room. "I understand," she said quietly, though nothing about it felt like understanding at all. She left the study, climbed the stairs to her small room near the back of the house, and packed the little she owned into one suitcase. Before she left, she walked past Mia's bedroom. The little girl was already asleep, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. Elena did not wake her. She only stood in the doorway for a long moment, memorizing the sight of the child's peaceful face, before she quietly closed the door and walked out into the cold morning air. The house changed almost immediately. Mia woke up the next day expecting breakfast the way she always had it, with the eggs cut into little shapes and orange juice poured into her favorite cup. Instead, she found an unfamiliar woman in the kitchen, a temporary nanny hired in a hurry, who did not know that Mia liked her eggs cut into shapes at all. "Where is Elena?" Mia asked. "She doesn't work here anymore," the nanny replied, not unkindly, but without any of the warmth Mia was used to. Mia did not cry that morning. She simply stopped eating. She pushed the eggs around her plate, climbed into the car for school without a word, and stared out the window the entire ride, her small hands folded tightly in her lap. Over the following days, the silence in the house grew heavier. Mia stopped asking questions about her classmates at dinner. She stopped drawing pictures to hang on the refrigerator. The new nanny tried everything she could think of: snacks, cartoons, promises of trips to the park, but nothing reached the girl. On the fourth day, the nanny quietly told Dominic that she did not think she was the right fit for his daughter, and by the fifth day, she was gone as well. Dominic told himself that children adjusted. He told himself that Mia would settle once she got used to someone new. He was a man who solved problems by removing the source of trouble, and in his mind, he had already solved this one. He did not yet understand that he had removed something far more important than a housekeeper. The truth found him on the fifth night, well past midnight, when he came downstairs for a glass of water, and found Mia sitting alone on the staircase in her pajamas. She was holding a piece of paper so tightly that the edges had begun to crumple. When he sat beside her and gently pried it from her fingers, he saw a child's drawing of a small house, with 3 stick figures standing in front of it, all holding hands. Underneath, in careful, uneven letters, were the words, "Me, Daddy, and Elena." "Mia," he said softly, "why are you awake? It's very late." Mia's chin trembled. "Where is Elena? Did I do something wrong? Is that why she left?" Dominic opened his mouth to answer, but no words came. He realized, sitting there on the cold staircase with his daughter's drawing in his hands, that he had never once considered how Elena's absence would feel from Mia's side of things. He had made a business decision. His daughter had lost the closest thing she had to a mother. "You didn't do anything wrong," he finally said, pulling her into his arms. "I promise you that." He carried her back to bed that night, but he did not sleep. He sat in his study long after the house had gone quiet again, staring at the folder Rosa had given him days earlier. Something about it had never sat comfortably with him, but he had been too quick to close it and move on. Now, with his daughter's tear-streaked face still fresh in his mind, he opened it again and read every page slowly, the way he should have the first time. The pattern was too neat, too convenient. Small amounts, always just under the threshold that would trigger a formal audit, always timed to months, when Rosa herself had access to the accounts before anyone else reviewed them. Dominic had spent years learning how to spot people lying to him in business dealings, far more dangerous than household bookkeeping. He simply had never thought to apply that same care to the people closest to his own home. By morning, he had traced the falsified entries back through the household bank records himself, cross-checking dates and signatures until the truth was undeniable. Rosa had built the case against Elena from nothing at all. He called Rosa into his study at 8 o'clock sharp. She walked in with her usual confidence, unaware that anything had changed. "Sit down," Dominic said. For the first time since she had started working for him, Rosa hesitated before doing exactly as she was told. "I went through the accounts myself last night," Dominic continued, his voice calm in the way that made people in that house go still. "Every entry you used against Elena traces back to access only you had. Your cousin needed a job. Elena's position was open once she was gone. Tell me I'm wrong." Rosa's confidence cracked in an instant. She tried to explain, tried to soften what she had done, but Dominic had already made up his mind long before she opened her mouth. He listened only long enough to be certain, and then he ended it. "You're finished here," he said. "No severance, no reference. Leave the way you made Elena leave, except she did nothing to deserve it, and you did." Rosa left the house within the hour, and for the first time in days, Dominic felt a small measure of relief. But firing Rosa had not fixed what was broken. Elena had not answered a single message he'd sent. She had moved in with her sister across the city, too proud and too hurt to come back on her own, even if he asked. That evening, Mia refused to go to bed at her usual time. She stood in the doorway of her father's study in her pajamas, her small arms crossed, her eyes red from crying quietly in her room. Dominic looked up from his desk, ready to gently insist she go to sleep, but the look on her face stopped him. "Daddy," she said, her voice shaking but clear, "please bring her back. I don't want anyone else. I want Elena." Dominic sat there for a long moment, looking at his daughter standing so small in the doorway, carrying a kind of grief he had failed to notice, building inside her for days. He thought about every deal he had ever closed, every problem he had ever solved with money, or with a single quiet word, and he understood, perhaps for the first time, that none of those skills meant anything if he could not fix the one thing that mattered most under his own roof. "I will," he told her. "I promise you, I will." He did not send a driver. He did not send flowers, or an assistant with an apology written on his behalf. Late that night, Dominic Castellano drove himself across the city, parked outside a modest apartment building, and knocked on the door like an ordinary man, asking for forgiveness, rather than a boss issuing an order. Elena opened the door and froze when she saw him standing there, hands empty, expression humble in a way she had never once seen from him in 3 years. "I was wrong," Dominic said simply. "I didn't ask questions I should have asked. I let someone else's lie cost you your home, and cost my daughter the person she needed most. I'm not here because the house needs a housekeeper. I'm here because Mia needs you. And honestly, so do I. I don't know how to run that house, or raise that girl, without someone who actually cares whether we're both all right." Elena studied his face for a long moment, searching for the coldness she had grown used to, and found none of it there. She stepped aside and let him in, not to accept anything yet, but simply to listen. They talked for nearly an hour that night, about Rosa, about the drawing Mia had made, about all the small moments Dominic had never noticed until they were gone. By the end of it, Elena agreed to return, not as someone quietly rehired to fix a mistake, but with a formal apology in front of the entire household staff, a raise she had never asked for, and Dominic's word that no decision about her would ever again be made without hearing her side first. When Elena walked through the front door the following week, Mia was waiting on the staircase, exactly where she had once sat crying over a crumpled drawing. The little girl ran down the steps so fast she nearly tripped, threw her arms around Elena's waist, and did not let go for a long time. From the doorway of his study, Dominic watched them both, and for the first time in years, the house felt like more than walls and schedules and silence. It felt, at last, like a home. Some men build empires through fear and quick decisions, believing that power means never needing to explain yourself to anyone. It took a 7-year-old's tears, and one honest look in the mirror, to teach Dominic Castellano that the people who truly hold a household together are rarely the ones sitting behind the desk, and that even the most powerful man in the room has something left to learn about listening before he acts.